Hey guys, SpiralMaster here. I'm doing a review on HMRPG and Warcraft 3. This is version 5.5a. So you can't play the game in single player. If you try and run it in single player or without another player in the game, it will lock the screen and you won't be able to select anything or pick a new or a beginning champion. You won't be able to load, anything like that. So if you're going to do it, you're going to need another player. Personally, I play RPGs kind of by myself a lot. I know it sounds kind of sad, but I just enjoy the grinds. There's a lot of Chinese, Japanese, European RPGs that are a lot of fun, but anyway, today I'm focusing on HMRPG. Downloaded this about, I don't know, a month ago. Played it a little bit and decided it was a lot of fun, so I'm going to go ahead and do a review on it. I've got another computer set up at my house, so I'm able to throw him on a local area network game and play the game solo for all intents and purposes. So on average, it takes probably about a minute to load on my two machines. My machine's got an i7 in it, but the other machine I'm running it on is only an i5 at 3.0. Mine's a 3.8, I believe. So specs are a little different. So of course, depending on your machine, depends on the load time. So anyway, to get started, there's definitely about 8 or 9 different classes you can choose from, all of which are completely capable of doing good things in the game. There are 3 tiers that you can have for each class, and once you hit respective levels, then your hero will automatically change into that next tier, and you get a full new set of abilities. On tiers 1 and 2, you actually have to level up to get the abilities. On tier 3, as far as I was aware, no matter who you tier up with for T3, it will automatically give you the full set of abilities that character has. Once we get in game, I will kind of go over each class that I've played and kind of tell you what abilities they have and what they can do. Personally, I like to play either a class that you have to build correctly or a class that you have to play correctly. I'm not really a fan of just having a character that has tons of passives and can just free farm, for lack of a better term. But I like the classes where it takes some form of skill, either in item purchasing or in how you play the champion or the hero. So there's a druid class where he's pretty self-explanatory. He's a healer, damage dealer, and he's very effective at soloing. So if you're playing by yourself and you want the game to go fairly simply, and again, this is just at the beginning. Once you get to the higher rank, you're going to want to jump online and play with a group of people, because you won't be able to take on the bosses that easily. But as far as starting, getting your character to T3, that's really what the beginning grind is about, is just getting your character up to T3. Also, I'll just let you know, the reason why it took so long to load is my other computer was minimized, so it took the game a little bit to register that it had actually started. Anyway, so your starting classes, you have, if you look before you get started, you can look directly to the right of the character select here, and you can actually see all of the characters and their tiers. So the druid class that I was telling you about earlier is here. And once you hit level 90, he upgrades to tier 2, and then again at 160 you hit tier 3. So you've got I'll just name them by how I know them. So you have the Crypt Lord here, you have the Warden, you have an Archer class, you have a Barbarian class, you have a Skeleton Mage class, a Werewolf class, a Pandaren class, a Dragon Sword class, a Druid class, a Full Caster class. She's more of an archer than she is anything else. Don't let her fool you. I know Dryads typically are a mage slash caster class, or maybe a healer class, but that's not the case in this particular RPG. This one here, I really haven't played him much because as soon as you pick him, he's just got a ton of passives. And like I told you earlier, I'm not really a fan of just playing a character full of passives. The werewolf is like that character in that aspect. He's only got 2 abilities that he can actually use, but he actually takes some skill to play him, as far as knowing how to use his abilities. So the Crypt Lord is, I've only had him at tier 1. I haven't actually gotten him up to tier 2 or 3. But he's more of a caster tank. Then you have the Warden here, or an assassin type class. Then you have the Archer class, so just main damage dealer. You have the Barbarian, that's more of a tank slash damage dealer. The Skeleton class is a damage dealing slash casting class. He's got a lot of abilities, but he also takes like he has an ability to where it infects a unit, and when you kill it, it explodes on death. So using his basic attacks will also improve his gameplay. The Werewolf, he's kind of a main damage dealer class. The Panda is also a damage dealer class. He also has all of his abilities affect what kind of damage he does. So you'll have to kind of, if you've ever played League of Legends, he's a lot like Udyr, or the one of the main junglers there, and he just has switching abilities where he can switch what type of attack he uses, and it's pretty neat the way that he's played out. Then you have the true tank class, is the Swordsman here. He's a lot of fun to play with. He's got a Thorns type ability that anytime a unit attacks him, it actually takes damage, and it gets to be very potent at the first tier. The Druid, again, is a healer caster class. He's got a main healing spell where he can just keep himself healed the whole time, as well as dealing massive amounts of damage to everything around him. Then you have the full mage class, where she has no healing, but she has tons of mana regen. So if you combine both these 2 classes together, you actually have a lot of damage output, and you can keep each other full on hit points and mana. So if you're duoing, it'd be a really good idea to combine those 2, so the Druid never runs out of mana, and the mage can stay alive in a fight. Then you have the Archer class, the Dryad. She's got a multi-shot function, and she's again a lot of more of a casting slash archer class. And then again you have the last one there. So today I think I'm gonna go ahead and demonstrate the beginning of the game with the Swordsman class. Again, everybody likes their own play style. This guy, he's got a lot of passives, and I know I told you I don't really enjoy passives, but he also has 2 abilities, and the about building him, that's another main thing. You know what? I take that back. I'll just show you on the Druid. He was a lot of fun. So we're gonna go the Druid, and I'll get started. So to get started, all you have to do is double click the character you would like to play, and it will choose it for you. So now you're here, and if you look over here, you also have a chicken. I like to set my guy on number sets, which is really easy. All you have to do is select the character you want on a number and hold shift down and click the 1 button. Now anytime I double tap the 1 button, I can jump back to him or my chicken. My chicken I put to number 2. So your chicken's like a backpack, and he can buy while you're in one of these arenas, and I'll get over to those later. So all your items that you can buy over here, your basic items are these 2 buildings right over here. And I would suggest, no matter who you play with, no matter what class you go, to start with a gate staff. and I'll kind of explain that here in a little bit. But if you look at its basic functions there, you have the most is intelligence, then strength, agility, and then attack damage is high, attack speed, defense, so on. So you're going to start out with 0% damage reduction, which is really bad if you're trying to power through this. So like I said, I would start with a gate staff. The recipe function for that is here, and it says you need Cropatus, Sanctuary Staff, and a beret or a barret. So the Sanctuary Staff just straight up costs 1,800. You can't actually make it in any of these recipes over here. So no matter what, you're going to have to pay $1,800 just to buy that. And then the Gate Staff itself costs 1,000. Now if you look at the other two things, there's a barret and a Cropatus. Cropatus is here. Now all it's going to do is give you damage, agility, and strength. Now whenever you're a mage class, that's not really the best route you want to go, and total it's going to cost you what, 2,300, almost 2,400. So what I would suggest is you start with buying the beret here. And again, it does cost a lot of money to start, so that means you're not going to have any items to begin with. So if you're having trouble starting, you could always start with a Medallion of Courage. It is the second best item that I would suggest starting with, which you can actually buy a whole bunch of stuff to get close to the Medallion of Courage without costing, $1,200 to start. So as I'm the druid, I'm really honestly not going to need much as far as kill potential, and you don't start out with any money, so obviously you can't buy anything at the start. Now what those numbers are over here is you have the level that you have to be before you can enter, or the suggested level of that place. So since I'm level 1, I could go into this level 13 zone and try and take on some really tough guys here. It's not really worth, in my opinion, to skip too far ahead, because you're not going to be able to kill something very quickly. As the druid, you will be able to jump pretty far ahead as soon as you get to your Entangling Roots, which is your 4th skill. The first skill is a healing spell, so I can just throw that on me. Then my second spell is a damaging one. And the druid starts out with a lot of base mana. So if you know how to kite, all you need to do is run around, wait for your cooldown to start, pick on different units, and use your abilities as often as you can. The healing spell actually doesn't really need to go back on you a whole lot. So the C is single target. So if you're wanting to kill a boss, that's how you'd go that way. And then you'll just continue on killing the units as you see fit. Now I'll show you what his last skill does. And again, this is only tier 1 of this particular guy. So it lets out those orbs. The orbs give you increased attack speed, attack damage, and a lot of other goodies. So as a druid level 1, you can actually jump to the second location and power through if you know how to kite and know kind of the mechanics of the game. If you don't, there's no problem starting in the first zone. It won't affect your ability to gain levels. It's just going to be a little faster if you can jump ahead. And again, the druid has a lot of mana potential at the beginning because all of the skills only cost 1 mana. So it's really easy to just continuously use all your spells, and I would suggest that. Just use all your spells as often as you can and upgrade them as often as you can, especially with the druid. You don't really have a reason not to upgrade those skills at the beginning, because their mana cost doesn't go up until they hit about level 4. So that's pretty self-explanatory for the beginning. All you're really going to do is continuously go through these little zones and get as much money as you can out of them. You do get money for the kill, so if you're running with another player and he's doing all the damage, then you're less likely to get more gold out of running through a zone, so you may want to split up at some point. But to get through a zone, all you have to do is kill that boss. The giant purple spider you saw earlier, that was the boss of this zone. So once I killed that, this rolling door opens, and then you go through the circle, you're back at the beginning. Don't forget to get mana every time that you go back through, because if you try and go through multiple zones without manaing up, it will be very difficult for you. So if you notice, I went to the first zone, level 13. I can probably skip through and jump up to the 23 now, because I have all of my abilities. And all I'm going to do in this zone that's a little different is I'm going to group up all the units that I can, since I have a lot of AoE stuff, and I'm going to try and kill all of them at the same time. And you know, of course, they don't do a whole lot of damage at the start, but the higher level you get, the more damage your skills are going to do, and of course the more mana they're going to cost as well. But with the druid, you really don't even need items to start, because your mana doesn't deplete very quickly, since the skills again only cost 1 mana to cast. And so you have your single target spell, and you want to use that on the harder unit, like this Hydra in the middle. You don't really want to focus on the littler guys; they're gonna die pretty easily. Whereas the Hydra will take several casts of your main damaging skill before you can actually kill him. And honestly, you don't have to kill any of these units. The only one that you need to kill is the boss of that zone. But if you can kill these guys fast, there's no reason not to kill them, because it is just more money. So if you kill the boss, then it gives you a bonus to money. As well as at the end of each wave, each round you go through, when you step through that circle of power at the end, it will give you a large sum of money. So the point is you can still run through with somebody, and it'll still be effective. Even if you don't get a whole lot of the kills, you will still get rewarded at the end of it. Now later on in the game, once you hit about 130, it's going to be very difficult to gain XP, because the only way you can gain XP at level 130 is by stepping through a circle of the power in this zone. Those zones, they're of course a lot further down the road than I'm at right now. But the point is you no longer gain XP from killing units. You have to gain XP from stepping through specific portals. So what I'm doing right now is I don't think I'm ready or have enough power to go through the next set, so I'm just going to power through this one. Now that my abilities are upgraded a little bit, it's going to be a lot easier for me to group these guys up, kill them all at once, and for lack of a better term, you can farm each wave, since you're by yourself. You can just group all these guys up, try and kill them all at the same time while losing the least amount of life as possible. And the regeneration skill on the druid doesn't cost anything, so you can always reset it. And it lasts for about, I think, 30 seconds, maybe a little more, depending on the level. But to begin with, it's about 30 seconds. So you don't have to repetitively cast it on yourself. It won't heal you anymore. All it does is ensure that you don't lose life in the middle of the fight. You're not really strong enough to go through the next wave until you get your first piece. Once you get the defensive item, or a defensive item, your defense is extremely important. The more armor you have, the easier it is gonna be to run through stuff. Now that I got that, I could probably honestly skip that level 33 zone and instead go on to the level 40. So in the level 40 zone, you have these 3 guys at the start. If you kill this middle one, then the next wave will spawn and allow a whole bunch of other units in. So now you can group the rest of them up and kill them that way, instead of wasting your mana on just those 3 units. So if you take out that middle unit, it's a lot easier to group the rest of them up and deal massive amounts of damage instead of wasting your mana. The boss for this one, he attacks really, really quickly. So if you have any form of crowd control or CC, a stun, a lock position, anything like that, you want to use that on him specifically, because the other units really don't do enough damage to take your life down. And when you kill him, he'll stop dealing damage, which he should be doing the most damage in the zone. So I'm just going to keep running through. I can probably do this zone 1 or 2 more times before it stops becoming effective as far as getting money is concerned. When I'm ready, I'm going to want to jump up probably to the 58, and I'll show you why here in just a second. As far as the druid is concerned, you want to be able to do damage to units in one area. So the smaller the area, the more damage you can do as long as there's units there. So that's why you see me dragging these guys over and getting them to all clump up into one spot, and then I can kill them all at the same time, instead of leaving them spread out like they are whenever they spawn. So you're just going to keep doing that. I've got 1600 now, so if I go over here and look at Kropatus in the gate staff recipe, I'm going to go over here, I'm going to buy the 2 pieces it requires, and this button here, the V button, will bring your chicken directly to you. The C button will return him to the camp. And if you're really lost and don't know how to do anything, he's got a blink, so you can actually go anywhere on the map that you want your chicken to be. These I'll go over here in a minute once I start getting a lot of money, but essentially those are your conversion tools. Once you start getting enough money to buy lumber, then you're going to want to be able to use those so you can purchase higher level items. So we're going to keep going. And again, I'm repetitively using my damaging skill, which is C, or the soul grabber it looks like. And I'm using that mainly on the big guy, the one that's hurting the most. And the other guys are just going to die because of my other abilities, so there's not really a reason to attack them or use any of that. They don't do enough damage since I'm healing all the time. Now I did just finish the 1000 for walking through that, so I'm going to pick up Kropatus and make that. So now I've got an additional 140 attack damage, 30 agility, and 20 strength. So now the only thing I have to do is wait for the sanctuary staff and then an additional 1000, and I'll pick up the gate staff. Now the reason you're going to want to pick up the gate staff is because of this item here called Tranquility. That is, in my opinion, the best starting item you can possibly go for because it costs the least. Anything else either doesn't do enough for you or costs too much. So if you notice here, the Medallion of Courage plus 8. Right now I don't have a Medallion of Courage, but when I get it, I'll show you how to upgrade it. There's recipes for the enhancement plus 1 through 4 right here. So once I make the medallion, then I can start upgrading it here, 1 through 4, and then whenever I want to go through 5 through 8, I can go over here and purchase that enchantment there. I have noticed that if you buy the items based off their original recipes, it actually costs you less than if you buy the item outright. So the gate staff here costs 6,700. If you do the math on all the items, it comes out to be maybe 15, sometimes even 20 to 50% off as far as buying the item outright. So I'm going to jump up as high as I can get to the level 58 zone. And if you notice, there's tons of units in here, and it's a small area. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run up there in the middle of all of them, try and get them all upset at the same time, and then start doing my area damage to them around me. And again, this boss does a lot of damage, so you may have to do a lot of kiting. He probably does a quarter to a half of my life every time that he hits me. So I may just die right here. Yep. So 58 was a little too much for the items that I've got. I don't have enough defense to stay in that zone. So I'm going to have to go run through a couple more times and maybe finish my gate staff before I want to continue. And the 40 zone is the easiest to run through. You only have to kill about 15 units to actually pass through this zone. and get the bonus at the end. So I could run this one 5 to 10 times before I ran another one, maybe even 2 to 3 times. So it'd be far greater idea to run through this one 5 to 10 times than it is to try and run through another higher level one and only run through it once or twice. So however you gauge how well you're doing in the game is really how fast you can run through a zone. In my bag there is a Phillips screwdriver that I used. It's the blue one. Sorry, had to talk to my partner here. He's doing some business work for us. So anyway, how you judge is how fast you can run through your zone. Now, if you saw my money change there, it went from 590 roughly to 1100. So that means that running through that zone, just for stepping through that circle of power, it's worth $600 or $550, something like that. So if I can do that 10 times, that gives me $5,500. So if you're trying to farm for something, then you just have to kind of calculate your grind. If you know how much each zone is worth, then you can kind of calculate how many times you need to go through the zone before you're going to have enough. And if you're doing it solo, you reap the benefits of all of the units. So if you remember, I was at 11.42 or close to, something like that. Now I'm going to go through all of this zone, and before I step through the circle of power, it'll be how much each unit is worth. So every time you go through solo, you get the bonus of killing all of the units. And it looks like that in itself was worth about $650 or gold. So $650 for that. I'm going to walk through this, and it put me at 22 from 18. So it is around 450. It's exactly 450. So 450 plus the 650 means it's $1,100 just to run through that zone. And all I needed was the 18 for this. So that means that if I run through that one more time, it's going to give me another 1,100. So that puts me at 1,500. I'll be able to buy all of the gate staff, and it won't have taken me but another. It's probably about a minute to a minute and a half to run through this zone right now because of the level of my abilities. Now, what I haven't noticed, which I don't believe the druid does this, but sometimes some RPGs will scale their damage off of your intelligence or one of your attributes. I don't think that's the case in this because whenever you get a substantial increase in stats, your damage stays the same as far as your spells are concerned. So dealing extra damage really only happens whenever you upgrade your skills. Now, having the extra mana is what's going to affect you later on in the game. So I just finished my gate staff, and like I said, it gives you a lot of stat bonuses, a lot of damage increase, and I recommend it for the starting item no matter what class you're going. It doesn't really give you a whole lot of defense, so I recommend for your next item to be the Medallion of Courage. What it does is it gives you your 50 defense, 70 to all stats, some more damage, and a large increase in attack speed. Attack speed will help you in the game regardless of your class, because sometimes your spells just don't do enough damage. So what you have to do is determine what kind of class you're going and the route that you want to take. So now that I've got 70 defense, I'm going to go ahead and jump back into this zone again, and we'll see if getting on that defense actually made a big difference. And as far as taking damage is concerned, it looks like it made a huge difference, because the boss was taking about a third to a quarter of my hit points per hit. Now he's only taking maybe a tenth. So I can run around, kite these guys, kill them really quickly as far as in terms of the game is concerned. And I'll still be dealing damage to him because I'm remembering to use my damaging skill only on him, and still be able to survive through his attacks and the attacks of the other units. So if you start to get hurt a lot, all you really need to do is run away from the units a little bit, because your healing skill, once you hit about level 40, is going to start healing you for a very large amount, and you will be able to heal up a lot before taking more damage. Now, some of the units in this zone are very difficult to kill if you are not a mage, because they have very high evasion. I think it's probably close to maybe 60 or even 70%. So if you are not a mage and cannot kill things in AoE, it will be very difficult for you to run through the 58 zone. So you may want to stay in the level 40 zone for a little while and get more stat increases before you continue. So now we're going to work on the Medallion of Courage. The Medallion of Courage is a necklace and a Crown of Kings. The Crown of Kings is directly above the Medallion of Courage recipe, and the necklace is inside the other tavern. So I would say it's probably best to start with the Crown of Kings. It's a lot easier than creating the full necklace, and all it takes are the 4 items you can see right there. So let's go 1, 2, 3, 4, and I've got the Crown of Kings, and remember, I can use my backpack to transport it to me at any point that I want to. So now I've got that, I can try and run through this zone here. I am using my ultimate skill, or the last skill that I upgraded, a lot. You don't really want to use it if you're going to try and fight the boss. He will require that to actually defeat the boss. So you may have to wait if you need to use it beforehand or before you get to the boss. Wait a little bit before you continue on. And then by the time your cooldown is reached, you will be able to use it again. One thing about this particular zone is those towers. I had no idea that they were actually units, and it freaked me out whenever they killed me once, because again, I just had no idea that those units were actually units by the time that I was playing. So be careful of those turrets. They don't do a whole lot of damage, but they do enough damage to where if you don't know they're there, they hurt a little bit. In this, most of the skills are directly related to each other as far as on the keyboard. So they will show you the hotkey. If you get the same version that I'm playing here, it's the English translated version. And if you've ever played a first-person shooter or an RPG-based game where you use WASD to operate the keyboard and operate your character in the game, I would suggest leaving your hand in that position, because typically the abilities are set up for the Q, W, E, R, A, S, D, or Z, X, and C buttons. So you can leave your hand in the position that you normally play the RPG or the first-person shooter in, and operate that side of the keyboard without having much trouble in finding where your keys are, because your hand's already used to that position, which I think is awesome for most Warcraft 3 map creators to do, is set hotkeys up for that side of the board. So we've got $2,200 now, so I'm going to continue on my Medallion of Courage, and I'm going to go for the necklace. And I don't really need the stat benefits of the necklace, so I'm just going to buy all the recipes and then buy each piece individually. And then by the time that I have all those pieces back up, the whole necklace will be bought at the same time, and I will just have a full new piece to go ahead and throw into my inventory instead of clogging my inventory with relatively useless stuff. If you're having trouble, it's a lot better idea to buy each individual item and then the recipe. But as for starters in this particular RPG, it is pretty easy to get going. There is a little bit of grind as soon as you hit probably your first tier, so tier 2, which is at level 90. There is a little bit of grind you'll have to do at that point, just because it's difficult to get from tier 2 to tier 3. and then the real grind begins as soon as you hit tier 3, just because of the amount of damage that the tier 3 and up, or the act 3 and up units take to actually kill. So I just bought the Hyperstone, which is a piece of the necklace. If you go over here, Hyperstone is here, which takes these 2 items there. Now I'm going to work on the top row, which is the Recall Amulet, while I'm fighting. And again, with the Druid, it is a little bit easier to play as far as the beginning is concerned, because he's so powerful. You can just stand in a zone and heal, whereas most other heroes will not have the ability to even get 1 to 2 hit points back, let alone stay fully healed throughout a whole zone. So in my opinion, that's what makes the Druid probably a stronger candidate for an easy start than any of the other classes, because none of the other classes really have a heal that is capable of. The Werewolf does have a small heal whenever he attacks, but it's not really, or whenever he kills a unit for that matter. Both happen whenever he kills a unit on a specific attack number, but nobody has a heal strong enough to keep them in a fight like the Druid does. So again, he's probably the best candidate for an easy solo player in this RPG. So I ran through up to $1,400, and I was at like 100. So I think it gave me 200 or 300 for killing the boss in there. So it gives me about 1,000 for completing that whole dungeon and stepping through that circle. And again, any person that steps through the circle gets that bonus. So if you're running with a group, be sure, and if somebody's doing a high level area, you may as well run through that zone with them. It would be a lot more beneficial to you if you followed them through it, versus trying to go and solo by yourself, because every time you walk through it, it's just a lot more money. If you can get into the zone they're in, I would suggest following them in and completing the zone with them, even if you can't really help them in the zone. If they're doing it, then that means they can probably do it by themselves. So if you notice, I'm just running through this particular zone again and again. This is the second time I've ran through it. I just want to finish that Medallion of Courage, and then perhaps that'll give me enough levels to move on to one of the higher zones. This one particularly is relatively easy, as far as it only takes about 3 spell casts of all of my skills to destroy all of the basic units in here. So what I could do if I wanted to go a little faster, but maybe play a little more riskily, is just run straight to the boss, have all of the units following me in the zone, and then use all of my stuff on the boss, and inherently I'll start killing the units around me. Specifically with the Druid, it's probably a little easier to do it with than most of the other heroes, like I told you earlier, because he has such a strong heal. And yeah, it looks like the boss is worth 125, and all the other units are 13 apiece, plus the 50 from the archer. So this whole zone gives you just about $1,400, maybe $1,500 just for running through it. So it's a very good, easy run through if... Oh yeah, I always forget that last piece. Looks like I purchased one too many items. So I got lucky, and I'm going to sell that and buy the Orb of Fire, and now I have the Medallion of Courage. So now my armor is up to 60% damage reduction. Later on in the game, when you have 40 and 50,000 armor, it's going to say 100% on it. But one thing we know about numbers is Warcraft 3 likes to round up to the nearest percentage. So even though it says 100%, it's more like 99.999, so on and so forth. And when somebody does 2 billion damage, even if your damage reduction is at 99.99%, you're still going to take 100,000 damage every time it hits you. So keep that in mind whenever you're later on in the levels, whenever you're fighting guys like this guy over here who do 10 billion damage, and you've only got 40,000 armor. You're still going to get one-shotted because you only have 100 to 250,000 hit points, and they're still doing 2 million damage to you, even though your damage reduction says 100%. So just be aware that later on in the game, even though you're at 100%, you're not at 100%. So I'm going to go through that one more time, and if it seems like it's going really easy, then I'm probably going to jump up to one of the harder zones. Each zone has their own quirk. So if you're trying to fight this Infernal Zone as a melee champion, if you noticed on the boss back there, he actually has several spells that just because I'm ranged don't affect me. Whenever you're a melee champion that's dealing damage right next to him, you're going to get affected by those skills, and since you're not running through with a druid, you're probably not going to get healed through them. So it's important to kind of skip the zones that you're having trouble with, because there's probably another zone you could do 2 to 3 times as easy and maybe only get half the benefits, but if you're doing it twice as fast, then you're getting the same amount of benefits if you calculate it in your head. If you do it twice as fast, half as benefits, you're doing the same thing. It's just a little more tedious, and it may seem less rewarding, but you have to take into effect the fact that you may not be able to do a specific zone, and that will detract from how much money you're getting in the end. So it's better to go back to a zone if you're having trouble with another one than it is to try and do that one over and over and over again and fail continuously. You're only getting a quarter of the benefits. Now you could have gone through the other zone 6, maybe even 12 times and gotten twice as much money as what you're doing right now. So the Infernal has spells. The Torn Chieftain does tons of base damage. Same thing with this guy here, the Tinkerer. He's very high damaging, 1200. He may attack slow, but he does a lot of damage. The Dreadlord is a difficult zone. I'll actually run through it really quick. He's only for 52, which I skipped him earlier because I didn't need to go through it. But he's just got a lot of units, and they all deal a decent amount of damage for a starting zone. So if you don't have any ability to heal, it's not really a good idea to go through this zone at all, because this guy right here has, I think it's probably 25% return damage to him. So even if you do attack him and deal damage to him, anytime that he hits you, he's just going to gain a lot of his attack damage back. So if I didn't have any skills and I was just using my basic attacks, this is what it would look like. It would take me, 10 or 15 seconds just to kill that guy, and all of the other units are beating me up at that point, and I'm going to have half to a quarter hit points just trying to kill one of those. So if you can kill him without him touching you, yes, this is a good zone to go through. But again, you just have to weigh the advantages and disadvantages of going through a specific zone. If you're not doing well in a specific zone, it's always my suggestion to go to a different zone. There's no reason to stay inside a zone and waste your time if you're just trying to level a character up and get him into where you could play with the big guys in a forum or in a clan online. Now the boss itself does not have lifesteal, so that's one good thing. But he's still not an easy person to kill at the beginning. And really running through the zone doesn't have super big benefits. It's only about 14, maybe 1500 gold just to run through the zone if you get the kill for all the units. So you may not want to use that specific one. I recommend 6 and 13 for beginning levels are really good. As soon as you can get out of the level 6 zone, I suggest it. The 13 zone is pretty good. The 23 zone is probably the best for beginning all the way up to level 40. and then you can hit the 33 if you want to. The 48 is a difficult milestone, so I would suggest doing the 33 and the 40 a lot before you try the 48. And then the 40 is just a really good run-through spot, like I was showing you earlier. There's very low units. You can kill them all, run through the zone, and then do it again. And then you can just farm that zone really easily as far as the speed at which you can run through it. Then the 58 is kind of specific to what character you're playing. Again, with the druid, it's not a bad zone to go through because everything clumps up. You can just attack the main guy in the middle, and everybody sees you. The aggression kicks in the game, and then you can just kite around and use your spells to kill all the other units while you're fighting him. And again, if you're a melee champion and you're only using basic attacks to try and beat this zone, it's almost not worth killing these green orcs because their evasion percentage is so high. I would just kill the boss and get out. And you may even be able to kill the boss 2 or 3 times before you finish killing those green orcs. So now we're up to $4,000. And the reason why I haven't bought anything in so long is because of the upgrades. You actually have a choice here. You can do the Medallion of Courage upgrade, or you can go over here and do the Gate Staff upgrade. Both of which are really good. Depending on what character you're playing, that's going to determine which one you want to upgrade first. But if you also look here in Tranquility, it actually requires both of those items at level 4 for the Gate Staff and at level 8 for the Medallion of Courage. So personally, if you're a caster, you're just going to want to do the Gate Staff upgrade. And if you look at the Medallion of Courage, it's 25 defense, all stats 35, and attack speed 10, attack damage 100. So if you're relying on basic attacks and such, you're going to want to do the Medallion of Courage. Whereas if you're a caster, you need the intelligence, you want to get that up as fast as you can, and it's going to give you the defense you need if you're getting killed really easily. So I'm going to go ahead and do that one. I'm going to go Gate Staff on the Druid here, and it instantly upgrades. If you look at your item now, it says +1 Gate Staff. So eventually you're going to want that to be level 8. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and continue on. I can probably jump up to the Ursa, but I'll show you why it's not a good idea to run up to him. The units in there are decently strong, and he himself, the boss in this zone, I think is a little more overpowered than most of the other zones. This big kobold guy here, I mean, he's huge. He's got 7,000 hit points, whereas everything else only has 1,400 to 3,000. So you're going to have to do twice the damage to him than any of the other units in here, but he is worth $100. So if you can do it fast, you know, you have reasons to be in here. As far as the boss himself, he doesn't seem like he does a lot of damage, but he has a huge, huge bloodlust. And when that kicks in, he crits every time he hits you, and he attacks 2, 3, maybe even 4 times a second. It's difficult to tell because I'm healing through this whole thing, but he's just a very difficult boss to kill, and he has a huge hit point increase from the last boss. I'll go back as soon as I either die or finish this guy off, and you look at the boss before him. His damage to hit point ratio is a lot different, and that's one of the main things you need to look at whenever you're choosing which zone to go in, is how much damage do I have to do and how much damage can he do to me. So I ended up beating him, so he's a level 77 zone. The last zone was the 67 with 10,000 hit points, and he only attacks at an average speed here at 350 damage, whereas he's going to be attacking at a very fast speed at 150 damage, but has 2.5 times the hit points. So if you think about it in terms of, can I do this guy really fast, or should I just go back to the other zone, it is probably your best option to go through the other zone 5 or 6 times, get the same amount of money, but do it 5 to 10 times as fast, because you only have to use 1 or 2 skills on this boss, whereas you're going to have to deplete your mana trying to kill this boss and do a lot of tedious work like kiting. The more kiting you do, the harder it is to run through that zone. So I don't necessarily like going through the level 77 zone. I'd be much more inclined to go through this level 80 zone where this lich is, especially with the druid, because if you look inside here, there's 2 main things you want to notice. They have about the same amount of hit points as the lower level guy in the previous zone, in the level 77 zone. So it's almost like it's the same zone, but it's a different attack type. You know, if you saw that dragon, it freezes me. So if I can deal damage to that dragon without him dealing damage to me, I don't get stuck in a spot for X amount of seconds. And you're going to want to kill all of the dragons in here before you even try fighting the boss. If you don't kill the dragon, you'll be froze inside the fight, and that's never a good thing, is to be stunned while fighting a boss. Now, I did grab the attention of the boss, which isn't a horrible thing, but I definitely made sure to kill that dragon. I even used that super damaging spell that I said to save for the bosses, just so he would no longer freeze me in the fight. And the second thing is that Wendigo guy, the huge big blue guy. He will also do a type of stun. Sorry, my dog just decided to bark. Funny stuff. Anyway, so hang on just a second, I guess there's somebody out front. So anyway, ran through that zone, and if you saw, that gave me $2,100 for stepping through that zone, which is great. Now I can grab another gate staff upgrade, and again, you can upgrade your gate staff up to plus. You can do it up to +8. Where is it? Yeah, here. But for the Tranquility recipe, it only requires a +4. And I did notice whenever I was doing this that the gate staff here shows orange, but here it's going to be purple. So you're going to do 1 through 4 and stop with your gate staff. But your Medallion of Courage, you're going to get it up to level 8. So I can definitely do the Lich pretty easily, and it's 2,100 for completing that zone. So I'm probably going to want to farm this until I get the gate staff +4, and maybe even the Medallion of Courage +4 as well, before I continue on. Now, with the Druid specifically, my damage output is a lot higher than a normal's because of my damage increase ability. It's that the G, or the last skill that you get, those 2 orbs, actually increases increases your damage output, attack speed, and it may even increase your armor or something. I don't know. Also, I don't think it does. Nope, it's just damage and attack speed and move speed, which is good. I mean, anything that increases your attack speed and move speed is always a good option for any class. Most classes have their passive that does their movement speed bonus, attack speed bonus, and maybe even a damage bonus. But specifically the Druid, it takes a skill for him, which again is typical for a caster class because he's casting. So went through that again, puts us up to 5,200 again, so I can go ahead and do another gate staff upgrade. That puts me at level 3. If I do it again, that's going to put me at level 4 with a little bit extra left over. Do it again, I get my Medallion of Courage. So the Medallion of Courage costs a little bit more than your gate staff upgrade. Only by 200, so it's not a substantial increase. But it is an increase. So you have to pay attention to that whenever you're doing your calculations. I'm going to probably get it up to level 3 or 4 before I skip to the next zone, and try and be able to take on the next zone as soon as I possibly can. It's all this game is at the start is how fast can I get to tier 2 and tier 3. I'm actually closing in on tier 2. Tier 2 is at level 90, so I've only got 17 more levels, which you're not necessarily going to get a whole new skill set. You'll probably keep most of your original skills, but one of them is going to become inherent, so you're always going to have that skill no matter what. Specifically on the Druid, I believe it's either his heal skill, his Starfall skill, or his Orb skill. I honestly don't remember which one it is. I've actually only tiered one person to tier 3 so far, and that was the Werewolf. And of course, I enjoyed him. But anyway, so another Gate Staff recipe puts me at level 4. And if you notice, my defense is just going up through the roof. I'm up to 75% now. It's at 280 points. I've got 520 intelligence. Looks like I'm doing really good. So even though I know I'm not ready, I'll go ahead and jump. So the 87 and the 95 are very, very difficult. There is an in-between, of course, this 93. I don't particularly like the 87 because of the type of damage and how he deals it. I'll just go ahead and run through and show you. However, once you hit the 83 mark or the 87 mark, there are these coins inside the zones that just give you more money. So if you can run through and get these coins, if you saw, that one was worth $300, which is worth killing 3 substantially hard enemies. So if you can run through a zone and collect those coins, that in itself is worth going through the higher level zones. So you have to factor that in instead of just thinking, oh well, that zone's only worth 2,500, whereas the zone I'm running through right now is worth 3,000. What do you get for running through the zone as well? And particularly on this one, you only get 300, but that's 300 plus whatever you get for killing all these guys. There's 6 these guys of the horseman mages and sorceresses combined, and they're all worth 100. So that 300 plus the 6 those is 900, plus whatever you get for killing the basic guys, and then also whatever you get for completing the zone. Now, the boss does have 2 times the hit points of the last boss that we tried to kill, so it's going to take me a little bit longer and really a substantially more amount of time to kill him, because my spells and stuff aren't really upgraded for it. However, killing him and running through and going through the circle of power at the end of the zone is definitely going to be worth a little bit extra money. So he is worth 400, so that means inside this zone you're going to make $1,500 if you're doing it solo. Plus, it looks like that was worth $1,900 total for stepping through the circle of power. So 15 plus 19 gives you 34, so it's worth 3,400 just running through that zone. That means I can run through that zone and get a Medallion of Courage upgrade every time I run through it, with 200 extra. So if I can do that zone relatively quickly compared to the Ice Queen over there or the Fire Boss over there, it's definitely going to be worth running through multiple times, because again, of all the benefits of actually killing everything in the zone. Whereas if you were online with a whole bunch of other individuals, it may not be worth going through this zone unless you're doing it very, very quickly, and somebody in there is just power leveling you and you're running through and killing the zone super fast, so you're getting the end zone benefit. But if that's the case, then you should actually be doing a zone that in the end gives you more than actually running through the zone. Because I just said it a couple seconds ago, is this zone is only worth 1,900 to run through the circle of power. So if you're not getting any kills by running through this zone, it's actually worth more to you to fight through a lower zone by yourself than it is to run through a bigger zone with someone else. Because I only got 1900 from this zone. It's a level 87, it's a level 87 zone. Whereas I could go through that level 80 zone that we went through earlier and get 2100, plus I no longer have to deal with trying to fight somebody for money by killing units. And it just becomes a lot more lucrative to you to run through a different zone a little bit slower, but you'll reap a lot more benefits than if you went through the other zone with somebody that was a little faster. So we got the Medallion of Courage. It's up to level 2 now. I'm gonna continue on. I'm a level 77, so I'm already almost about to tier up to level 2, which is when I'm gonna start trying to fight these guys over here. But we'll get into that a little bit later. As far as getting to tier 2, this is definitely the way to go. The 87, I'm actually doing that really quickly now, so we're going to go ahead and skip doing the 87 for a little bit, and we're going to move on to the 93. Now, this zone is particularly interesting. Those acolytes have a lot of lifesteal, and they also have a very powerful heal. So if you don't take them out first, you're going to regret trying to fight them and something else, because they're just going to keep it healed the whole time. There's also 2 coins in this one, so that's $600 just for killing the coins. So if you wanted to make money quickly, you could just pop into this zone, kill the 2 coins, die, and then pop back into the zone, kill another 2 coins, and then it's $600 every time you do that. I wouldn't necessarily recommend that. It's probably a little slower than if you ran through a lower level zone, or if you tried to kill everything inside this zone, because you can. I mean, it's not difficult to wait a little bit, go through the grind just a little bit longer than you think that is necessary, get a little bit more extra stats, and then go ahead and kill the boss, as well as collect the coins. Think of the coins as just a bonus to going through that specific zone, instead of, oh, hey, look, it's a farming item. No, don't think of it as a farming item. Think of them as a little helpful bonus that you get just for going through the zone. Now, if you remember, I was telling you you can teleport to your guy. Anytime that you have the opportunity to upgrade yourself and you're fighting a boss, if you don't have to pay attention to your character, don't. If you're just basic attacking and trying to kill a boss that way, you don't actually have to use any spells or anything like that. You can do other things, like look at the recipes. Try and figure out what item you want to go for next. Try and figure out what items you want to make in the near future. Specifically, I want to make that tranquility recipe. So this time when I go through, I'm just going to set my guy on a little path. And you can always set characters on paths using the shift key, even if the patrol key is disabled. So I can tell my guy to attack there, and then I can say shift attack over here, then I can say shift attack over to here, and now I know my healing spell is going to stay on me. I just used my attack speed spell, it just wore off, so probably before I go and check on what I can buy, I'm going to use that attack speed buff one more time and then go look. And that's where my unit sets that I set at the beginning of the game come into handy. Now I can jump back to my chicken by double pressing the 2 key, go over here, look at the Medallion of Courage, try and buy one maybe as soon as I get enough money. Okay, I purchased it. I'm going to go over here, look at Tranquility. It says I need a Medallion of Courage level 8, plus 4 Gate Staff, and a plus 4 Catagle's Axe. So I'll go over here, look at the Catagle's Axe. It's 5,400 if I try and just buy it outright. So that means there's probably a recipe for it somewhere. I look over here, find the recipe. Okay, 1,700 plus a Cropadas plus a Hyperstone. That's pretty easy to do. So I'm going to go ahead and give myself that Medallion of Courage. Tell my chicken to go back. Maybe use my other skills a little bit over here so I can kill stuff a little faster. And then by the time I start the boss fight, I should be able to go back, maybe even buy something if the zone was worth a lot of money, and then continue fighting the boss. As far as the boss fight's concerned for a druid, it's probably better for you to watch your character because he is so skill based. Unless you just blow all your load and then use the attack speed skill, you probably don't need to watch him after you use that attack speed skill, since we went the gate staff first. That gives you 610 attack damage, and then every point of agility gives you 0.75 damage. So, and that doesn't matter what character class you are. All character classes do the same thing, and all character classes gain the same amount of stats, base stats. So, if depending on what class you are, really that's going to determine what kind of items you want to buy for that game. And again, for the druid, I definitely want to do the gate staff and tranquility. Tranquility is like the cornerstone for all of the first tier items. If you look over here into this section, you can see what you can use with tranquility and what upgrades you can actually make. So here it says Scepter of Mastery plus Shield of Courage. So if this was an item, and I do recommend this item, but if this was an item you want to go for, then you need a +3 Scepter of Mastery. So if you're looking over here, Scepter of Mastery, looking for a Scepter of Mastery. If you don't see it, oh, there it is. Okay, that's just the enchantment. So that's not going to give me, that's not actually going to give me a Scepter of Mastery. That's going to upgrade it. So that means the Scepter of Mastery is elsewhere. If I go over here into this fountain, there it is. There's a Scepter of Mastery, and it requires a Tranquility plus a Gate Staff level 8. So that means I'm going to have to do a Gate Staff level 8 again, since the Tranquility recipe calls for a Gate Staff plus 4. So I'm not going to even be able to use the Gate Staff I've got already. I'm going to actually have to go back through and make another Gate Staff and try and make it to a Gate Staff plus 8. You do not have a penalty for dying in this particular RPG. So if you go through a zone, you end up not being able to defeat it, and you're kind of stuck in there, you don't really want to die, there really isn't a reason not to die. And I would suggest, if you're having trouble with a zone, to just go ahead and kill yourself. Just go to the boss, let him kill you, and don't put up a fight, just let him kill you pretty quickly, and then you can kind of get on your way farming again. It is good to test your strengths though. If you're running through a zone really quickly, you know, try and pop up 2 or 3 zones, see if it's worth going there, and kind of work your way down from there. So if you start at the level 6 zone, you can pop up to the level 23 zone, and if you don't quite complete it, the earlier zones, I would say it's probably worth to stay in until you start being able to do higher zones a little quicker. I bought an extra Medallion of Courage there, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and make a Catagle's Axe. Specifically, once you hit about 82, 83, XP gain starts to get a little rough. So I'm going to go ahead and pop into this level 98 zone. I know for sure I'm not going to be able to kill the boss because he's very tough. I'll go through what he can do later. But it's a lot like the level 77 zone, where he gets a huge attack speed bonus, except for instead of critting you every time, he has like a 50% chance to stun you. So if you don't have more than one hero in there, it's actually a very difficult zone to solo. However, there is a lot of money potential in there, and XP gain for a closer to level 90 hero. So here, I'm going to do exactly what I normally do. I'm just going to clump everything up. The turtle is very strong as far as spells are concerned. He takes a lot of damage if you attack him, but anyway, if you're using spells, then it's difficult to kill. Now, if you saw that guy just split into 2 eggs, and he was worth 80, and his 2 spawns are worth 100. So that in itself is $280, and there are a total of 2 of those on this island. There's also a gold coin here, and it's worth 300. So that's 300 3 times already. So that's 900. And then the turtles, I believe, are worth 100 apiece. So even if you don't kill the boss, yeah, they're worth 90. So 2 turtles and 3 coins, that's $1,100. And if you notice, it's a decent amount of XP. I mean, I was level 82 at the very beginning of that level, and I'm already at 83, almost 83 and a half. So even if I don't kill the boss over here, I at least have gained a level and a half just for being in here, and I've gained $1,300. So it's not like it's not worth it as far as a money scale is concerned. However, the boss is a difficult boss. The druid is probably the only person that I see soloing him as under-geared as I am. Since the druid has a damaging spell and some crowd control, I could, in the land of theory, just go ahead and use my heal spell, use my spells, run around, and just damage him. Whereas most of the other heroes in the game don't have that ability to do so. If I were trying to just go in here for XP, I probably wouldn't use my heal spell, because I would actually rather him kill me than me spend 5 minutes trying to kill him. It is possible to do, and as far as money is concerned, it's not a bad idea to go ahead and kill him, but it's very time consuming, and again, you could probably run through a lower zone 5, maybe even 10 times before you kill this guy once, and he's only going to give you maybe a 40% increase in gold. So the moment that you went through the other zone twice, you're already out farming yourself if you try and stay in this guy and kill him one time. So I would say it's probably a better idea, if you're wanting money, not to mess with the final tier guy. But if you're trying to tier up to your level 2, it's probably worth staying in here and either killing him or all of the units around him, just because of the fact that he's worth a lot of XP. He was worth $400 and half a level for me. So again, if you are trying to XP up just to hit your tier 2 guy, it's not a bad idea to go through that and do it that way. So I'm going to go ahead and go through there again. I'm going to clump everybody up like I normally do. Just going to deal my AoE damage. Using my damaging skills on the turtle. I'm not really worried about running out of mana, just because I have the gate staff level 4 and a level 4 medallion of courage. And it looks like I have $8,000, so now I'm going to go ahead and start working on my Medallion of Courage updates to level 8. This is a very, very big upgrade. 305 attack damage, 105 stats, and 75 defense is nothing to bat your eyes about. And that is a huge upgrade as far as at the beginning is concerned. Before you hit tier 2, if you can do that before you hit tier 2, you're doing really, really well. You're getting the max amount of money for your buck. I mean, you're doing really, really good at that point. So I'm all the way up to 85 now. I only need 5 more levels, and I'm going to hit my next tier, which, honestly, if you're in a position where you're not gaining a whole lot of XP, it's not a really good idea to actually tier up, and I'll tell you why. Because as soon as you tier up, you're going to lose all of your skills. You're only going to have one skill at level 90, and that's not a good thing. You're almost going to have to start back maybe 2, sometimes even 3 zones, just because you lost the ability to deal damage since you only have one skill. The druid is one of the perfect examples of that. You're going to lose your ability to deal damage. You're still going to be able to heal yourself and do a little bit of damage, but you're not going to be near the damage dealer or caster that you are right now. So I would be leery of trying to tier up before you're ready. I've got on this particular run through, I've only messed up once, so I've only wasted $2,400. If you mess up 2 or 3 times and you're not anywhere near the Medallion of Courage +5 or the Gate Staff +4, anything like that, it's going to be very difficult for you as soon as you hit level 90, because you're going to lose, again, you're going to lose all of your damage dealing abilities. So just be careful of that. If you're messing up, you might want to farm a little bit, maybe not XP, maybe just some money. Run through a low zone 5, 6, maybe even 7 times. Get yourself a Medallion of Courage upgrade before you try and hit level 90. If you notice, my armor is just climbing as soon as I hit that +5 Medallion of Courage, so it's actually really difficult for me to even take damage in here from the basic units. Now from the boss it's a different story, because, well, he's got that bash and he's got the bloodlust thing going for him, so I'll still take a lot of damage from him. And again, the druid is a very easy class to solo just because of his huge heal. A lot of the other classes you're going to have to farm in a littler zone for a while before you end up being able to move on. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with sticking around in a low zone and killing stuff for a long time before you try and move on. That's part of the game. That's why they call it the grind. You're going to have to do it at some point. The druid just gets to do it later on in the game. Like before he hits tier 3. And again, the tier 3 is actually a very difficult milestone in here, but I'm going to just go ahead and go through each tier as a separate video. And so this is just the basic one, how you get to tier 2, and then I'll show you from 2 to 3, and then I haven't gotten past the second boss in Act 4, and there's 6 or 7 acts that you can actually play through in this game. So I haven't gotten too far in the game, but I have hit the tier 3 character, and as far as I was aware, that's the last time you actually tier up. If you again, if you look over here at the very beginning when you're selecting your hero, you can see all 3 top tiers that each character can get to. The only one again that I've gotten is this werewolf, and he turned into a champion that I wasn't too fond of, so I probably won't be playing him. The druid, however, I do like caster classes, kind of like I told you at the beginning of this, so he's one that I could see myself trying to actually go through and beat the game with. I will say that it is probably going to be almost impossible for you to beat the game solo, just because you can see the end game bosses, how much damage they do, and it's just going to be very difficult for a single character to try and take on a boss of that stature later on in the game, even if you have some very powerful items. Looks like I'm going to get a second medallion. Yep, I'm going to be able to upgrade the medallion level 2 now, which is really good. Honestly, this is probably the best I've done on a run through as far as the startup is concerned. The first time I went through a druid, he was the second character I've ever played, and I was real flustered. I didn't really know how to get through leveling, how to figure out which zone I should be in. And a lot of that just comes with the more you play the game, the more knowledge you are in where you should go. So if you're going to start, I would suggest, testing out a couple heroes before you actually get serious about playing one of them and trying to run through and get yourself tiered up. Just play around with the heroes, figure out which one you like the best before you make that decision. Pretty much, I won't say it's like this for all of the heroes, because I haven't gotten them all to tier 3 before at this point in time. But they're all pretty much going to be close to their original abilities, and so you can kind of judge what the character is going to be like based off of their first form. Really, the tier 2 and tier 3 are just upgrades. You get one of your abilities for free, and you get bonus stats to start with. So if you think about it that way, it's a lot easier for you to determine which character you want to play with in the end. But again, I would play around with them a little bit, try and see kind of, oh, that guy looks like he'd be fun later on in the game, or that's the kind of guy I want to play with. If you're joining a group online, there's always a need for a specific type of character. Typically, the one that you like the best, and it's always this in my case, the one that you like the best is going to be the most played. I know it seems a little suckish if you're trying to get online, but nobody wants a room full of druids. They want each, because then if it's an item based game where it's drop instead of purchase like this one is. If it's an item based game, everybody's gonna be fighting over the same item, and that's no fun. Everybody's just trying to gear up and play the game. But whenever you have 7 druids or 7 werewolves or something like that inside a game, it's never fun to fight over gear. So if you're trying to play with a group online or something, I would just say it'd be far better for you, or far better for everyone, if you just went ahead and picked a character class that you may enjoy a little bit less, but is probably a less played character. But to get a feel for the game, or if you're playing solo, there's no reason why you can't play whatever class you want to. So I'm about to hit level 90, and that'll be the end of this video. As soon as I hit tier 2, which is at level 90. Some classes are instant change, some you have to die before the change makes an effect. Typically it is an instant change. On the werewolf, for instance, I had to die for that one to change. It looks like I'll probably either have to clear this zone or die for the druid to change. But essentially, you're going to want something like this to start. Again, I suggest the Gate Staff and the Medallion of Courage for every class, regardless of what type of character you're wanting to create. Once you hit tier 3, then that is the point that it's actually going to matter what items you have and what items you're going for. Until then, it's really not a big deal for what type of item you have, just because the starting items are basic. They're going to give you the most stats that you can get. They're going to give you pretty much what you're going for at the beginning is just startup items, which the Gate Staff and the Medallion of Courage, Tranquility for that matter, is the best starting item there. It's 3,150 to all stats. 3,150 attack damage, all stats 1,100, defense is 600, attack speed is 150. So that's a huge starting item. The next one I would say is the Shield of Courage. It's a little more expensive, so I wouldn't go down that road to start with. But obviously you do need that you need a Tranquility before you can get that. So again, that's why I go the Tranquility, is because I will eventually be going the Shield of Courage. If you're doing an attack damage person, if you want to split off and do a Freezing Spine, you can. I honestly, like I told you in the beginning, I wouldn't suggest it unless you're the all passive type person who deals in critical strikes and just total damage output by basic attacks. Then the Freezing Spine is a good choice, but still the Medallion of Courage, no matter what. Most of the recipes later on in the game they just require a Medallion of Courage. It's just part of their repertoire of items necessary for the recipe combinations. So I'm going to step through. It looks like I've got enough for and there you go. I just made my change. So the first skill I get is that attack speed, attack damage thing, as well as my heal skill. Alright. Well, that's going to conclude the first tier run through of the HM RPG. I'll see you guys next time.